Hello and welcome to Just One More Watch. It's back from the dead. It's the Zelos Skyraider Mark II. Now, Zelos launched the original Skyraider almost exactly 2 years ago, and at the time that model sat a little bit to one side and a little bit above what they were known for. That being $300 to $500 dive watches, interesting range of materials, offering fantastic value for money. The Skyraider was a pilot's watch for a start, so a little bit different from their usual fare, and it was also more expensive. The top-end titanium skeletonized models cost well over $1,000. Didn't stop them from selling out in their entirety pretty quickly. Now, since then, they have launched the Mirage Tourbillon model, which became the new Halo model. A dozen of those were made, they cost over 10 grand each, and they all sold out within a day. But that hasn't stopped the Skyraider retaining its totemic status. I'm a member of the Zelos Facebook group, and quite often you see people posting, anybody got a Skyraider for sale? And when they are posted for sale, they disappear. So I think a lot of you will be delighted to see them doing a long overdue Mark II. Now, this video is sponsored by Zelos, and I'm well aware that I'm going to have to do 2 reviews in one here. I've got the skeleton model on my wrist, and I know that there will be some of you dying to have a good look at this one. But I'm also conscious that a lot of you will be favouring the lesser priced models. The skeleton's $1,500, the regular models start at $899. So I'm going to kind of do 2 reviews in one today. Dimensions and specifications, how this watch fits, how it wears, etc. will apply to all of the models, but the way it looks, that only applies to the skeleton. Let's flip the camera and get on with it. Now, the timing of the publication of this video is quite specific. It is so that if you are keen on one of these watches, you get the chance to have a look at this one at least on camera before you make your purchase. These go live on the Zelos website in about 8 hours time. I will obviously leave a link in the description of the video. 5 different colorways. There's the Frost full lume dial and the teal dial, both for $899. 2 different meteorites at $999. Then the top of the range, the full skeleton at $1,499. Now, if you're keen on a Skyraider, I reckon you already know roughly which model you're going for. I'm not sure that anybody who's in for a teal will suddenly decide to spend the extra on a skeleton and vice versa. You know, $600 is quite a chunk of money between those 2 models. I'll talk about where the value does and does not lie a bit later on. Now, if you have watched a video on Zelos on this channel or elsewhere, you will be familiar with this brown wooden box, and you will no doubt be familiar with this grey PU leather watch roll. They used to be blue, but at one point in the not too distant past, they switched from blue to this kind of silver grey colour. Now, if you've watched a Zelos review on this channel before, you know that the next thing I'm going to do is complain about the fact that it only comes with 1 year warranty. Now, I actually asked Elshan, I said, why do you only offer 1 year warranty and do people not complain about it? And he says, no, Jody, you're the only person that complains about it. And he could offer a 2 year with the usual T's and C's, but doesn't feel that customers would get any extra value from it. I kind of see his point, but especially with a skeleton model for $1,500 I would expect more than a 12-month warranty. But I guess if people keep buying them, then this isn't going to change. I guess you would also expect to find a watch in the roll, but today you don't. And that's because the titanium bracelet doesn't articulate enough to allow it to be folded into that watch roll. It was supplied in this nice little Zelos branded Ziploc baggie. And there, ladies and gentlemen, is the watch. Undoubtedly one of the most striking watches that I have ever reviewed on the channel. A really, really stunning looking timepiece. I'm not sure how many more watches out there for around this price for the $1,400 USD look quite as striking as this one and make quite as much of a statement as this one. Now, I should point out, sized up for me, I removed 3 of these links. Now, I've got a kind of average size 7-inch wrist. If you're a really big guy, 8.5 inches or thereabouts, you might struggle with this one, especially as it's only on a titanium bracelet this time. They don't provide you with a Horween strap. More on that later. But back to the watch, I am going to chuck in plenty of macro footage today. Outdoor shots, indoor shots, some time lapse. Shots of the back of the watch, shots of the front of the watch, shots of the side of the watch in an attempt to capture it. It really, really is quite a striking looking piece. Great set of dimensions on this one for me and my 7-inch wrist anyway. 42mm bang on. Just under 11mm thick, 48.5 lug to lug. Now, titanium bracelet, like I said, rather than the Horween strap of the previous model. Extended mid-link here. However, it does Follow the case profile very nicely, it fits me very well. 22mm lug width, there's a bit of a taper down to 20, back up to 22 at the stainless steel clasp. So titanium bracelet, titanium case on the watch, but it's a stainless steel clasp. I think that's good, and I'll talk about the reasons for that later on. Regardless of the fact that it's not all tie, it still only weighs in at about 112 grams. Perhaps due to the skeletonization, I reckon maybe 125, 130 for some of the non-skeletonized variants, but it's a big watch that wears like a small watch. Reminds me very, very much of the titanium swordfish that I reviewed a couple of months ago in that regard. So titanium case, titanium crown, titanium fixed bezel, titanium bracelet with screws, solid end links, titanium outer edge to that display case back, push-pull crown because it's a manual wind movement. Obviously with this one, you don't get a screw down crown. That means you only get 50 meters of water resistance. So it looks kind of tooly, but it is a pilot's watch at its heart, so it doesn't quite have 100 meters plus of water resistance that it looks like it perhaps should have. Now, the solid link titanium bracelet is one of the big steps forward between this and the previous generation of Skyraider. Single solid links, but there's two different types of finishing. So they've got a brush finish on the upper edge and a kind of bead blasted finish on that slightly angled lower edge. Very, very nice effect. And as I said, they are screw links and quick release. So if you do fancy swapping this one out for a leather strap or something similar, you'll have no problems doing that. Now, I mentioned that the clasp is stainless steel and not titanium. Titanium is a very different material to work with than stainless steel. It's much softer. It doesn't tend to work as well in this type of application. So I've seen a number of brands do titanium bracelets but include a stainless steel strap. I think it also helps balance out the weight of the watch when it's on the wrist as well. Now this one is a carryover from other models, I believe. It's properly machined and it has a built-in micro adjust, which is very nice indeed. Just move that in with your thumb and you've got maybe a centimeter or so of back and forth, and this one, for once, I've got it spot on for me. Nice brushed finish throughout on the case as well here, very much suiting that kind of slightly darker tone that you always get from titanium. Zelos branded crown, nice and grippy, but noticeably smaller than on the previous generation model as well. I guess, again, another little improvement there. But let's get it off the bracelet, let's get the macro lens on, and let's have a look at the dial, the hands, the movement, the case, pretty much everything, because it's all skeletonized. You can see everything at once. So the movement that powers this watch is an ETA Swiss-made 6498-1 Elaboré. Now that is the horological equivalent of the pushrod V8, i.e. it's ancient technology. These things used to be found in pocket watches back in the 1940s and the 1950s. That is how old the technology is. Manual wound, when fully wound, you've got about a 50-hour power reserve, so you've got just over 2 days. It vibrates 18,800 times per second, so that leads to 5 point something ticks of that little second hand down there at the 6 o'clock, but because it's a small second, you barely notice the difference. Really, it's all about the skeletonization here. It's a different level of skeletonization to the previous Skyraider. I had an eagle-eyed subscriber message me and point out a couple of differences. The barrel wheel up there is skeletonized, whereas previously it was only decorated, and the hour wheel right in the center, again, it is skeletonized in this version, whereas previously it was only decorated. There's still a little bit of Zelos branding here and there. There's a Zelos Z just to the left of the indicator at the 3 o'clock near the crown, and there is another Zelos Z on one of the main plates next to the indicator at the 9 o'clock. Not super legible though. If you want legibility, I would be opting for one of the other versions, especially as there is no minute track around the outer edges here. Accuracy also not one of this watch's strong points. The movement doesn't hack, so you're not really going to get a great set on it either. You're buying this one as a bit of a show pony. You're not really buying it for accuracy, let's be honest about that. There is, however, a bit of lume here. They managed to put a bit of lume on the triangle and double dots up at the 12, the kind of traditional pilot's watch triangle and double dots. There's some lume on the indicators at the 3 and the 9, and that little truncated indicator down at the 6. And if I flip the watch over, you can see they've loomed the text around the case back as well. I've never seen that before. It is a very nice touch, an illuminated spec sheet for all of us lume pigs. And this really is a watch that looks just about as attractive from the back as it does from the front. They've done away with a couple of the blue screws this time around, but you can see all of those gorgeous rubies glistening away underneath my studio lights. And on wrist it wears fantastically well for what is a considerable watch. And on wrist I think that stainless steel clasp gets another couple of points back. It balances out the head of the watch. If there had been 10 grams or so less on the underside of the wrist, I think it might have felt a little more top heavy than it does, because at the moment it doesn't. It feels really, really good, and I think it looks good as well. If your wrist is much smaller than mine, 7 inches as discussed, you might end up with a little bit of an overhang because of those 2 extended mid links. I'll swap it over to my right wrist, which is about 7.5, and you can see what it looks like on that one. Yeah, so I'm right-handed, so my right wrist is going to naturally be a little bit more muscular and a little bit larger therefore than my left. No jokes about that in the comment section. Thanks very much. I think it looks great. I think it looks even more a natural fit than it did on my left. Not that it looks bad on my left though. Legibility, yeah, you want legibility, go buy the Frost one. Like I said, this is not what this one is about. It really is a bit of a statement piece. I think they could have made the hands slightly broader, having said that. Full-size dial, full-size watch, they could probably have done that without making them look disproportionate, but as it is, you know, I'm not complaining. This one is all about the overall look, not necessarily about at-a-glance legibility. Similarly, outside, flat sapphire with anti-reflective coating. You can clearly see the slightly purple anti-reflective coating. Maybe it could have done with a couple more layers of that for extra legibility, but that's not the point. It still looks pretty incredible. On wrist, you saw the side profile earlier on. Those downturned lugs means it wears very nicely indeed. You've got that bracelet with a bit of adjustability, 112 grams. This is a great all-day, everyday watch. If you don't care about legibility or timekeeping, if it is all about the look and all about the statement the watch on your wrist is going to make. But there will be moans and there will be niggles, because there always are. 1 year warranty, I talked about it right up front. That's pretty rough on an $899 watch. It's very rough on a $1,499 watch. And why no Horween? Why no leather strap? Why no extras? Zelos are the masters of the package, of giving you more for your money. Why on the more expensive models, and indeed I think this is about their second most expensive ever model, why isn't there a Horween chucked in there as well? I think that would be really nice, especially as the bracelet is quick release. They don't even offer one as an add-on option with a titanium buckle. I'm sure they could have done so at a reasonable cost on top. Even if they added a bit extra, it would have been nice to have it as an add-on. I talked about the slight lack of legibility on this one. Maybe a broader handset would have helped. It would also have helped with the loom, not necessarily as applicable with the other models, which are more inherently legible than this one is. And there is definitely a bit of suspiciously metallic looking crud behind this caseback. Couple of bits up there near the Swiss and the ETA, and quite a cluster at the end of hand wound and at the beginning of movement. Now, if this had been a $150 Chinese clone of a 6498, I would not have thought twice. I would have popped the case back off, given it a puff, popped the case back on, and moved on with my life. But it isn't. It's $1,500, and I reckon this one should have been checked more thoroughly before it left the factory. Now, this is number 1 of 100. Now, when I got it out of the box and saw that, I thought, oh, it's the photography sample that Elshan has then posted onto me. So I cross-referenced it with the press shots. Now, the press shots have a case back that says 1 of 50, but there's also crud in the same place. So I don't know, maybe it's something to do with the movement, maybe the skeleton movements shed little shards of something in that particular location. I'm going to keep my eye on this one. It's a watch that I intend to wear quite a bit over the coming weeks and months. I will be monitoring it, and if it gets much worse, I will be contacting Zelos to see what they recommend that I do with it. Certainly worth thinking about if you intend purchasing the skeleton version of this watch. And in one final moan, I can't help but think that they might have been better off putting a piece of slightly domed sapphire on this. I know they want you to see as much of that gorgeous movement as possible, but it does rather give a lot of flecto. If I go back to some outdoor footage and I move the watch around in natural light, you can see sometimes too much reflection, too much evidence of that purple anti-reflective undercoating. I reckon a bit of double dome with plenty of clear coat AR on the underside would optimise the look of this model. So where does that leave us then? Well, it still leaves us with one of the most striking watches that I've looked at on the channel ever, and one that will likely hold its value better than anything this side of a Rolex. Can you imagine buying a Fortis or an Alpina or even a Longines for $1,500 and trying to sell it in 2 years' time and getting the vast majority of your money back? It's just not going to happen. Whereas I reckon these Skyraider 2s will be as in demand as the Skyraider 1s were. But still a few moans, still a few niggles, a couple of rough edges. I guess that means in 2 years' time I'll be likely to review the Skyraider 3. So there you have it, the Zelos Skyraider Mark II. If you've spent the last 2 years looking for a Mark I, calm down, make yourself a cup of tea, because there's going to be plenty of them on sale in about 6 hours time. Having said that, I reckon the frost dial, the teal dial and this skeleton model will all go fairly quickly. As regards this skeleton model, it is absolutely stunning. It wears magnificently, light, comfortable, and it looks pretty spectacular. However, there are a number of caveats. Not the most legible, not going to be the most accurate watch, especially as it's going to be difficult to set because the movement doesn't hack. You know, if you're looking for accuracy, you probably shouldn't be buying a watch with an ETA 6498 in the back of it anyway. I reckon it's one of the most striking watches you can buy for $1,500, and I reckon this is going to hold its value much, much better than the average Swiss watch for $1,500 will over the next couple of years. Don't forget, if that's a bit too much, there are still plenty of them for less than $1,000. Thank you for watching. I will see you in a future video.